Okay, today on the workbench we've got this satellite X-17. This is made by Masudaya back around 1962. Of course, Japan. Tin battery toy, has bump and go action. It's got alternately flashing lights. Has a lit cockpit where you can see the shadows of the operators, and an air jet for originally floating their astronaut in orbit. Basically, I'm gonna pan you up. There's a picture. Let's zoom in on that, of one of the versions of the toy. The only difference between this toy that's pictured and the one that I just showed you down below is right here. This one doesn't say the X-17, it just says a satellite. But the graphics and the rest of it are the same. The functions are the same. Back when I was a kid, I actually went and spent my own money and bought this toy at a local drugstore of all places, because they sold toys, just because I wanted to figure out how they did the flashing, the alternately flashing lights. So it was fun for me to repair this one, because that gave me a chance to look inside again and see it. But you can see there's this floating astronaut that the air moves on, and this is styrofoam, much like the styrofoam in a clamshell case, like if you buy a hamburger or something like that, but shaped into a half dome, not completely round like this ping pong ball that I cut in half. Had more of a flat bottom to it. The ping pong ball, of course, is a lot heavier because it's not styrofoam, but it has an interesting, I haven't hooked the tabs together so you can take a peek inside before we're done here. Has an interesting on-off switch in that you have a center off, and then you have two on positions. In one on position, you're in bump and go with your alternately flashing lights, and of course your airstream, but the cockpit light is off. In the other position, you have all those functions, but also the backlit cockpit light. Two D cell batteries fit in the bottom, go in here. You got your standard bump and go, and this is in the just blow mode. It's the fan is blowing, and you'll see when I open this up inside, there's actually a cam and a large metal shutter that shuts the air off to the blower. So that if you had the styrofoam guy floating, he would be floating real high, then he'd come in and land, and then when it started blowing, he would go up high again. In the case of the ping pong ball, which is too heavy, we can get some air out of it. See, it's floating around there a little, and now it's going down. That's the shutter shutting off the air, and pretty soon the air should start coming. Now it's coming back on again. So that's the functions there. Now if you move the switch to the front instead of to the back, you get, we got so much light in here you can't really see it. Let me shut off the room lights and see if that'll help. There you go. I still got a lot of light coming in through the window, but you can see there's a nice silhouette of the people inside. Alright, let's turn the room lights back on. And let's crack this sucker open so you can see what's going on inside. I say, it was sent to me apart and not working, and I was fine with that. I was mainly fine with it because I always wanted to open one of these up again. Like I say, I had one as a kid, and I remember tearing it apart right away and then actually turning it into a robot. I put the alternating flashing lights, I think, on an old coffee can or something, and kept the bump and go mechanism. So to do the alternately flashing lights, you can see you've got a sequencer right there. See how that spins around? That's applying power to one and then the other of the lights to get them flashing. And right there on top, I'll go forward with it. There's the light that backlights the people. And of course, that's the blower. And this is the shutter, which moves around to block off the air input to the blower. Let's turn that on. See here, it's coming around slow, so the blower is blowing really strong right now, and as this comes around and blocks off that hole down in there, which it's attempting to do right now, You can actually hear the speed of the motor change a little bit. And now it's opening back up again. And of course that's done by gear reductions through here in the whole gear drive. Maybe we should turn this light on. Let's see if this helps. So get more light down in there so you can see the gears. Maybe I should have had that light on when I was showing you the back side, if that makes any difference. But the main reason that it was here, I guess, for not working was there were several cold solder connections. These two blue wires which supply power to the motor, they weren't even connected, so I'm assuming that wasn't the whole problem, because the guy that sent it to me would have just reattached them. But I cleaned the contacts off on the motor, the brush connection there, resoldered those two on, and then I found that the motor ran, but it was squealing, which means the bearings are dry. And this bearing at this end, of course, I can get in there and to lube with my little oiler with a needle point on it, but can't get to the back one. You'd have to disassemble not only the whole gearbox, but all of these plastic things that are melted over, that's called stakes. You'd have to break those off in order to get the fan housing off to get in there and tear all this stuff apart. It'd be a really big deal. So instead of doing all that, I went in with a 1mm drill bit and made a little hole right there. And like I say, my needle oiler, which you've seen if you've watched my other videos, could reach right in there and get to the back of the motor shaft. And I put my drops of oil in there, ran it, and of course between the front and the rear one getting lube, that took care of the squealing. I found that this light was flickering on and off instead of staying on, so it had a bad connection to frame ground, so I ended up soldering it, which it wasn't initially, it was just threaded in. Took care of that. And then I found as I played with it more every now and then, when I'd turn the switch on, of course the alternately flashing lights would light, but they weren't flashing, and the motor wasn't running. And I'd move it the other way, the motor wasn't running, I'd move it the other way, the motor wasn't running. And if I came down and just so much as even thought about where this white wire is, that's not original, I added that, thought about touching it, all of a sudden the motor would come back to life. So initially what they had done in this toy is the red fiber, which holds the brushes isolated, has a metal tab from the motor frame that's bent over. Normally they bend them away from the motor tabs to hold the red fiber board in place. In this case they bent it towards the metal tab and soldered between that motor frame metal tab and the actual brush to make the connection to one side of the motor, and the blue makes your other connection. In this case it is a negative ground, so negative was the soldered one down here. And even though it looked good, it was, again, like the light and like the blue, it was a cold solder connection. It was intermittent, if you will. So I did clean that, and not only just reflow the solder between that brush and the motor frame, but went ahead and added the grounding wire just to be sure that that side of the motor got full power and would run every time. So it really came down to repairing the bad solder connections, lubing the motor, and of course I cleaned the contacts up in the upper half of the battery box to make sure that they would get power all the time. And that's pretty much it. That's what's going on in there. You got your motor, you got your blower, you've got a gearbox with tons of gears down in there for reduction. They gear it down for the flashing. They gear it down even more for the louver to control the air. And then of course the shaft has to come down to the bump and go mechanism. But like I say, when I bought, not this toy in particular, because this was sent to me with a pair, but I bought one as a kid just to find out how all of that worked in there. It was really a cool thing when I was, well, 1962, however old I was back in 1962. And there you have it. I will reassemble this guy and get him on his way.